Welcome to Compassionate Conversations. The goal of our podcast is to explore topics related to serious illness. Ancora Compassionate Care exists to be a supportive presence for life's journey. We can provide care and support wherever a patient may be on their journey with a serious illness. Ancora Compassionate Care began as Hospice of Rockingham County in 1987. While our name changed in late 2023, we are still the local provider the community has always known. We'll always be there because we've always been here. Welcome to this edition of Compassionate Conversations. Today we're going to continue our discussion centered around caregiving. When we are a caregiver for someone that we love, it is obviously an act of love. It's a very selfless thing to do, and it's a very difficult thing to do. It's a lot of hard work involved in caregiving, and it comes with unique challenges. Maybe sleep deprivation that leads to exhaustion. Maybe there is decision overload, and maybe even sometimes feelings of guilt. So we're going to talk today about the importance of resilience for caregivers, what that really means and how we can strengthen that. So I'm delighted to have Kerri Miller here with me today to join in on this conversation and help provide some education. Kerri is one of our grief services counselors here at Ancora Compassionate Care and also our team leader for our chaplains. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Lynn.
Yeah. So let's just dive right on in. So from your perspective,
Yes.
What does resilience really mean for a caregiver?
Well, resilience for a caregiver or for any of us, it's not that things aren't going to happen because we know life likes to give us opportunities to figure out what to do next. But resilience is really the chance to respond in healthy ways, to use your resources, and to know that it's all right to ask for help because we have resilience in our physical bodies, with our emotions, and just the way our brains work. So there are different types of resilience as well.
It's interesting. I don't know that I've ever thought about the different types, and we'll get into that a little bit more, I'm sure. But if someone is a caregiver for a loved one, why is resilience such a critical skill?
Well, the more resilient someone is, that gives them the chance to be able to continue to show up for the person that they're caring for. Because so often and naturally, because we have strong feelings for the people we're caring for, caregivers often let themselves and their own needs slide, which they can do for a time, but it catches up with them.
Yeah.
Whereas if someone is resilient or has been practicing resiliency, then they know how important it is to be able to still take care of themselves, because if they're not okay, they're not going to be able to make sure their person's okay.
Absolutely. So, a lot of caregivers, and probably they don't even realize this when you said things, they let it slide. When we're caring for somebody else, obviously our focus is going to be on that person, on their needs, and making sure that we're doing everything we can to take care of whatever the need is at the time. So I would think that a lot of caregivers struggle to prioritize themselves.
Absolutely. Yeah. And oftentimes people feel that they're being selfish because they know this person they care for is sick, isn't able to do for themselves, and they want to be able to show up and give them what they need. And they think, well, I don't need that doctor's appointment. That's just a checkup. I can push that back a few months or next year. Or it's okay if I don't sleep for a few days. It's okay if I'm sleeping with just one ear open and not really resting.
Right.
But our bodies feel that. And it's difficult to be resilient when you're tired, when you're stressed. And caregiving, over a period of time, that can cause extended stress, and that magnifies anything that's already in us. So physical health issues, if we aren't getting them checked out, things could bubble up that we weren't expecting, and we're not tending to them.
So what are some realistic self-care practices that caregivers can do? Because, you know, this schedule gets mighty busy, right?
Absolutely.
And to your point about letting things slide, and maybe I'll do it next week. I'll reschedule my appointment for next month. Time goes by so quickly.
It does.
And that month has gone by before we even realize it. So when things are so busy, what are some realistic self-care practices people can fit in?
Well, and one thing to think of right off the top is that it has to be manageable. Because if it's not manageable, you're probably not going to do it.
Right.
And also looking for ways to add self-care to things you're already doing. Something that I like to tell people that I'm working with, whether it's the staff here or whether it's the patients or the caregivers. You know, as a caregiver, you're probably already washing your hands, we would hope, throughout the day.
Right.
So when you do that, since you're already washing your hands, and if you're not singing the happy birthday song or counting to 20,
right,
what if you add on some extra time and just breathe while you're washing your hands and just notice, how does your body feel? Is there any tension? And if you notice tension, you can imagine it flowing from, mine likes to live in my shoulders.
Yes.
And it can flow from wherever it lives in you, through your arms, through your hands, and imagine the stress or the tension just going out the palms of your hand, down the drain, away with the water and soap. So that's one thing.
Okay.
Finding a space that's quiet, not a lot of light, and just breathing. And you can actually do that anywhere. No one's going to pay attention to the fact that you're breathing.
Right.
If you stop, they might get a little concerned. But if you're in the car, if you're in a difficult conversation, if you've just changed the bed linens for the 5th time within a day,
Right.
can you take a time to breathe? And sometimes we don't. I'm low tech, so I don't have a Fitbit. But, you know, so often people can program to breathe, but people will dismiss it like, no, I don't need to do that.
I'll do it next time.
Exactly.
Yep.
So we forget to breathe. And by breathing intentionally for just a few seconds or for a minute can help shift things.
Yep. This sounds so simple, but this has been learning for me as far as following the breath. And that's been part of my own meditation practice. But you're right. We are breathing anyway. But usually when we're tense, when we're stressed, I tend to almost have to remind myself to follow the breath and actually release it all the way, because I find that I'm holding my breath.
We do that. And sometimes when you're breathing, whenever you exhale through your mouth rather than through your nose, that gives you a little bit more of a breath.
Right.
Because if breathing intentionally is something that's helpful for you, one thing you can do is just notice there's no right or wrong. But when you begin to inhale, is the inhale in your chest? Is it in your diaphragm, or is it in your belly? Those are things to notice. If it's in your chest, that could be a sign that you're stressed or anxious. It could be a sign you just need to change your position.
Right.
But the more stressed we are, the more we're breathing in our upper areas. If you've ever watched a baby breathe, they breathe from the belly. And we all come into this world breathing in our belly, and that gives our body and our brains the full complement of oxygen to get through the day. But we lose that as life happens and we experience change and stress.
And so I imagine the breath, though, just like you were talking about, washing your hands and letting the stress, visualizing it going down the drain. That's what I do with my exhale. You know, where can you soften and just let it go?
Absolutely.
Yep. So something that's very practical that you can fit in, but it takes practice.
It does. And sometimes when people mention mindfulness or meditation, people are like, I don't have time to do that.
Right.
You can do it for 30 seconds. You can do it for a minute or 2 minutes.
Right.
Because if you're new to it, you're not going to be jumping into like 5 minutes or 10 minutes or half an hour.
Right.
Because our brains usually like to be front and center. And so they're going to try and get our attention away from our breath and say, well, no, you need to think about that patient that's waiting for you, or you need to think about this bill that needs to be paid, or what about those dishes that have been sitting there for a couple days?
Right.
Yes, but right now I'm breathing.
Right.
Yes, but right now I'm breathing. And just the more that you're able to let your mind think, because we are thinking creatures and we
Right.
can't not think. But we have to recognize, we'll give it a split second and always return to the breath. And if we do
Right.
that, then we'll get more space in between the brain trying to hook us.
And again, takes practice. Just to acknowledge,
Absolutely.
whoop, my mind has wandered, but come back. But always using that breath as the center. So, yeah. Well, thinking about prioritizing themselves as caregivers, something else that kind of goes along with that is, how can caregivers set a boundary with the person they're caring for without feeling like they are neglecting that person?
That is a great question.
Not an easy one either.
It's not. It's not. Because sometimes the caregivers, again, there is guilt around taking
Sure.
the time for themselves. And sometimes the patients are harder on their caregivers because they know their caregivers are there for the long haul.
Right.
Like when my dad was ill, if people came in to assist my mom, he was lovely with them, very easy to get along with. When it was just my mom, not so much, because he knew she was always going to show up.
Right.
So trying to put boundaries into place, it's going to be something you have to do for yourself. And say, what is it that I need to do to meet my needs and be okay? And the patient may or may not be okay with that.
Yes.
But it's up to the caregiver to figure out what those boundaries are and how to hold them while the patient is still being supported, even if it's not the caregiver themselves.
And I wonder if there can even be a very honest conversation from between the two, right? Because
Ideally, yes.
I'm here to take care of you because I love you, and this is what I want to do. But in order for me to do that to the best of my ability,
Yes.
I do have to do this to take care of me.
Correct.
Yeah.
And having that conversation, and hopefully the person's able to hear it. But even if they're not able to hear it, it's important for the caregiver to be able to verbalize that.
Right.
And also have people in their lives that they can talk to, or at least one person
Yeah.
they can talk to, or a journal somewhere if there's not a person available, just to kind of track and realize that this is my experience, because sometimes we can get up in our heads and we can question ourselves and say,
You know,
did that really happen?
Right. Yeah.
And just having a witness, either written or person.
So one of the boundaries, if it's possible, to have kind of ideally there would be a nice set schedule. We realize that's not how life happens.
No.
But one of the things I think certainly that plays a role in the stress of the caregiver and in their ability to even set the boundaries and all of that is thinking about the role sleep and nutrition play in resilience. So, and again, there's a boundary, there's self-care, all of that.
Well, and it's so interesting because sometimes when I'll ask people about self-care, they think it's going for walks or getting a massage. And I'm like, have you eaten today? Did you drink any water? Have you been able to use the restroom?
Yeah.
Have you
Uninterrupted.
slept? Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but all of that is part of resilience.
Correct. And also in boundary setting,
Yes.
because we, again, that can let things slide and time gets very fluid. We may not realize that we haven't eaten. So if we're able to take some moments just throughout the day to catch our breath and just check in with ourselves, say, what am I feeling? What am I noticing? Am I hungry? Because if you're moving quickly, you might not even know, and your stomach's trying to get your attention.
Right. And so obviously, if we're not sleeping well, physical exhaustion becomes a very real thing.
It does.
Now, during the day, you might want a nap, but again, life goes on. The needs of the patient continue. So are there some practical tips that you would give to a caregiver as far as how they could manage their energy throughout the day when they are really tired?
Sure. Well, and ideally, maybe the patient would sleep some during the day and rest when they rest. And if sleep isn't an option, breathing, meditation, mindfulness for a few minutes, because at least that gives the body a chance to relax, even if it can't fully rest.
Let go, right?
And that's something that can come into play at nighttime, because sometimes it's difficult to fall asleep because you have an ear out listening for the person.
Right.
Or you've gotten into the habit of waking up and checking on them, and then it's hard to fall back to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
But looking for breathing exercises, meditation, reading things that aren't going to get your attention and want you to keep reading.
Right.
Doing quiet activities.
I would even say no screen. You know,
And
that's a huge thing that I've even had to learn for myself, because that blue light wakes that right back up.
Because ideally, you wouldn't have any screen or device 30 minutes before bed.
Right.
Best case scenario, 60 minutes before bed, because the blue light makes your brain think it needs to be awake.
Right. And we are not meant to be awake and take in information 24 hours a day, but somehow society, we have slipped into, it's slipped into that just a little bit.
And when we're not sleeping, that makes everything that much harder.
Right. Well, everything is magnified.
Yeah.
And maybe our patience is getting shorter.
Yes.
Yep. So
having a sleep routine. I know you'd mentioned that in a conversation the other day. That's important to people. They don't think about getting your body trained to say it's time to go to sleep.
It's time to go to sleep.
And what does that look like? Whether it's the smell of a cleanser you use, or taking a shower at night. And a shower at night, that's just a full-scale version of that washing your hands.
Right.
During the day, you can imagine things just washing away through the shower.
So for myself, and thinking about sleep, I used to almost make fun of the term sleep hygiene.
Sleep hygiene.
When I first read it, was like, sleep hygiene. But it is so true. You have a wake-up routine, so to speak. We tend to do the same thing to get ready for our day.
We do.
So, yes, very important to do that in reverse. So we talked about the breathing, but let's talk about some mindfulness, maybe some meditation, some quick techniques that we could offer to caregivers.
Okay. Well, one very easy and practical tool that I love, it's just remembering a time or a place that's important to you.
Okay.
Like, for me, the mountains are my go-to. That's a great place for me to relax and really reconnect and feel very grounded. Well, when you're a caregiver or even a patient, you might not be mobile the way you would like to be, and the mountains aren't going to happen.
Right.
But you may have been to the mountains before, and you may have some favorite memories from the mountains. Yeah. So if you can take a few minutes and step back into that memory, but really flesh it out. What were you smelling? What surface is beneath your feet? What does it feel like? What's the temperature? What's the air? What's the sky look like? What are you seeing? What are you hearing? Or what are you tasting if there's food or anything involved? But using all your senses to be back in that memory and just breathing in that memory, and it can put you back in that space, at least for a little while, and give you a little mini break.
You know, as I'm listening to you, and we've talked about breathing, with what you just described as far as the mindfulness or finding a quiet spot when the patient is resting to rest, I almost feel like you can have several mini breaks. This doesn't have to be viewed as, I need to find 30 minutes or an hour to take care of me.
Not at all.
That it can be done in small bites and still accomplish the same thing.
And that ties in it to it being manageable, because caregivers may not have half an hour.
Exactly.
They may not have 15 minutes.
Right.
But what do you have? You're already breathing. You're already washing your hands. Right. You're hopefully already sleeping, or at least trying to.
Right.
And you have a lot of memory you can pull from. Yep.
I think maybe what might be an issue for some people is almost the only thing that's coming to my mind right now is like giving yourself permission to take these little mini breaks.
And for whatever reason, sometimes we're really hesitant to give ourselves that permission.
Yeah.
There was a woman I'd worked with years ago who didn't feel like she could grieve. And I asked her if she could give herself permission to do so, and she couldn't. So I wrote her a permission slip.
I love it.
And so if people aren't able to give themselves permission, maybe there's someone important in their lives that they can talk to and say, hey, this is going on, and I don't feel like I can take this time for myself. Can you help me with this? Or how can you encourage me to do this? Because I might not do it for myself.
Right. And what's interesting, though, is I'm sure we would do that for somebody else.
Absolutely.
And,
we're very quick to take care of other people and support other people. And we let ourselves slide. A Sabbath practice, that was something I'd learned about in divinity school, where you take time. If it were a day, that would be lovely, but in caregiving, that's not going to happen.
Right.
But blocking off, what is your Sabbath practice? What gives you joy? What is life-giving? Whether it's watching the rays of sun, or watching a bird, or sitting with a cup of tea, or whatever it is that possible to do?
And I think sometimes when it's difficult for us to give ourselves permission to take these little breaks, and then my mind went right to maybe that's where some feelings of guilt creep in as far as a caregiver. Just speak to that just for a little bit, because I think people can really kind of beat themselves up for, gosh, I shouldn't have that thought, or I should have never had this feeling. I love this person.
Right. Absolutely. On something that's been often used, but it's often used for a reason, that analogy when you're flying and the person says, in case of emergency, you put your oxygen on first, and then you turn to the person that's with you if they need help.
Right.
If we can't breathe, we're not going to be good to anybody. But for whatever reason, we do often have feelings of shame or guilt when we try and take time for ourselves, because we don't recognize that by taking that time for ourselves, we can continue to show up.
Right. So we're actually going to provide, better might not be the best word, we're going to provide the care we want to provide for that person the more we take care of ourselves. Yeah.
At a job I'd worked years ago, we did a caregiver workshop, and at the end we presented them with a gift, and inside was a mirror to remind them that they are a gift.
That's pretty powerful. And so simple at the same time, and I think just caregivers need to understand how important they are. Perhaps all of the care that you're delivering is helping your person stay out of the hospital or just stay on top of their health. Maybe you're helping them manage their medicines, whatever the case may be. But they wouldn't be in the situation they're in without the caregiver.
Correct. And respecting their wishes, having conversations about what they want end of life to look like, what they want to be supported in.
The other thing that kind of ties into this is not feeling guilty when you ask for help.
Yes. I know that's something I've worked on for a long time, because sometimes we get the sense that by saying that we need help, that we're not strong.
Right.
Or that we're not capable. And a soapbox that comes up whenever I work with people. So this is a bias. You can be aware of that. Oftentimes in our culture, we don't look at the definition of strength that is going to be most helpful for caregivers. We look on, strength is doing it yourself, pulling yourself up by your bootstraps,
right.
Pushing through. When saying, I'm really tired, I need some help, I'm struggling, and being vulnerable and asking for help is a strength.
Yes.
And not enough people recognize that. And it takes strength and courage to even say that.
Absolutely, it does. And, I think it takes a ton of strength and courage to even be willing to be the caregiver.
Absolutely.
And even more courage to say, I need a little help so I can continue. As opposed to just letting things fall completely apart
right.
when we don't ask for help. Yeah, that is tremendous.
And
So-
recognizing what our limits are.
Right.
Because oftentimes caregivers are not trained caregivers, and they may have their
Right.
own physical issues
Sure.
that providing care challenge.
Yeah. So as we're wrapping up, what if you could give caregivers one piece of advice that they could carry with them every day, what would that be?
That you are truly a gift to the person that you're caring for, and that in order for you to be able to continue doing this work, you need to tend to yourself and allow yourself to catch your breath, allow yourself to take a moment. And at times when you question that, just remember that you're human. We're finite creatures. We have limited capacity.
You love the person that you're taking care of, but you also have to share some of that love with yourself.
Yes, and grace is
Yes.
huge for the person you're caring for, but really for yourself. In order to give yourself permission, give yourself grace.
Right. And all of that we've talked about helps to build that resiliency so we can continue to take care of this person tomorrow and the next day and the next day.
Exactly.
Thank you so much.
Thank
It was
you.
a great conversation.
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Compassionate Conversations. I hope that you learned something. If you are a caregiver and you need some added support, Ancora Compassionate Care is always here. You can give us a call at 336-427-9022.